The Seneca Falls Convention took place in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848. During this time, women were still deeply oppressed by the cult of domesticity and the white patriarchy. Institutions like the cult of domesticity shaped gender roles in the U.S. in the 19th century all the way into the 20th. Anyone who ascribed to these ideals believed that women's natural and biological place was to attend the home and any need that would come up of her husband and children. In order for women to conform to society's ideals, they had to acquire piety, purity, and domesticity. Another form of oppression that many women had to face every day during this time was domestic abuse. Domestic abuse was widely accepted and was even sanctioned by law in some states. In these states, husbands could legally hit their wives as long as they were trying to provide quote-unquote correction for their wives' behavior. On top of everything else, there were also little to no women in the workforce, and there were 0 women that were represented in the government of the day. The value of women in society at the time was reflected in their lack of representation in the government. Women still had not gained the right to vote. Prior to Seneca Falls, America went through a religious revival called the Second Great Awakening. In the Second Great Awakening, women began to be looked at more of an equal level in the church. This influenced many women's new ideas on how they should be treated in society and would soon be voiced at the Seneca Falls Convention. Another social topic of the time was the emancipation of African Americans. In the 1840s, it was prior to the Civil War, so the talk of equality was a very controversial topic. The talk of equality traveled all throughout the nation, and it traveled into the homes of many women. Women and men soon began to realize the social and institutional injustices that are being cast on women every day. Elizabeth Cady Stanton lived in Seneca Falls, New York, and was the mother of 4 children. Elizabeth's father was a lawyer who helped her shape many arguments for women's equality. She influenced many women to believe the same. Elizabeth also had many women that teamed beside her in the fight for equality. Years prior to 1848, Susan heard of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and realized she had many of Elizabeth's same ideals ingrained in her. Susan is the co-founder of the Seneca Falls Convention alongside Lucretia Mott. Susan B. Anthony dedicated her life to try to bring equality for women and African Americans. The Seneca Falls Convention was a pivotal moment for women concerning equality and the right to vote. The men and women that met at Seneca Falls created a list of grievances called the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments. This list declared that both men and women deserve the right to vote and have the same obligation to the same rights. Hey, what is your name?
Hi, my name is Jay Wieland.
And what led up to Seneca Falls?
That is a question that can really be started, for America at least, since the Declaration of Independence. You know, the United States was founded in 1776 as a free nation away from Great Britain. And in the Declaration of Independence, it states that all men are created equal. And that men part didn't include women. Women were denied rights from everything from property to the ability to vote. And that carried throughout the United States history until about the 1800s, early 1800s, where there was some movement in the field. There were some brave men and women, mostly women, who started to push for equality and women's rights. Now, what really started getting the wheels turning were women trying to advocate for a new importance in religious practices. There's something called the Second Great Awakening, and where women were allowed to pray openly with men in a service. But what led to Seneca Falls was mostly Quakers, which it should be noted were religious people, who started to advocate for 2 things. 1, the abolishment of slavery, and 2, women's rights. And really those things went hand in hand. And these women, these great women, predominantly the Stantons and the Motts of the movement, gathered together in Seneca Falls, New York, they pushed forward to have this convention to discuss women's rights.
How important was Seneca Falls?
Seneca Falls, like all movements that are rooted in an underdog, have important moments. And Seneca Falls was one of those for women's suffrage. But it wasn't just important for women, it was important for our country. It's really one of the first documented times that you have two really oppressed people. And it's dangerous to say that women and African Americans should be equated exactly the same in 1848, but they did have some similarities. You know, Frederick Douglass, who was there, he was a free man. He was a free black man. So there was African Americans who were free. They weren't slaves in the North. But Seneca Falls stands out significantly because it was such a uniting force. Yeah, only 300 people came. And yeah, only 100 people signed the document. But it was a document that was discussed and was passionately argued for. Men arguing on behalf of women. Now, possibly to further their own agenda. I mean, Frederick Douglass was no idiot. He knew that by articulating a message of equality with women, white women, would help his cause, would help African Americans everywhere. But it's important because that's what our country is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where people who are completely different can meet to discuss what's right and what's important. And so Seneca Falls is an important place in American history that doesn't get discussed often because, I don't know, it's weird. And it's easy to pass by. But it's important, and it has long-term implications and had to be a huge, huge force for Susan B. Anthony and for other women who came around and were able to finish what the women and men who at Seneca Falls started in 1920.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning.
What is your name?
My name is Jay Wheeland.
What is your name?
My name is Jay Wheeland.
What led up to Seneca Falls?
Boy, that is a long answer because arguably, okay, are you gonna just...
I woke up like this. I woke up like this. We flawless.